If you've ever, spent like 3 years memorizing Spanish grammar rules, passing all the exams, getting the gold stars, and then you just completely freeze the second you try to order a coffee from an actual native speaker, your brain isn't the problem.
No, it's really not.
Right. It's your textbook. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at why studying a language the traditional way actually, prevents you from hearing it, and how your daily commute holds this ultimate audio hack to physically rewire your brain for fluency.
It's honestly the most universal heartbreak in language learning. People, they hit that wall of rapid-fire noise in the real world and just assume they lack the genetic aptitude for language.
They think their ears are broken or something.
Exactly. They think, well, I guess I'm just not a language person. But the reality isn't about aptitude at all. It's a purely mechanical failure in how we've been conditioned to process auditory information.
Which completely shifts the blame, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes the guilt away for you. Because when we look at the mechanics of what's happening in the sources we're unpacking today, there's a massive structural difference between the what they call the frozen language we learn in school and the living language we actually encounter in reality.
Right. Frozen versus living. That's the core of it.
Yeah. And when I was prepping for this deep dive, that concept really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because learning from a textbook is essentially like studying a butterfly that has been, pinned inside a glass display case.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. It's static. It's perfectly preserved, but it's dead.
Exactly. I mean, you can lean in close to the glass, you can see the exact geometric pattern on the wings, count the legs, analyze the antenna. It is completely safe.
Right. No surprises.
But no matter how many hours you spend staring at that pinned butterfly, you have absolutely zero idea how it actually moves in the wild.
Right.
You don't know how it flutters, how it gets thrown off course by a gust of wind, how erratic it is. You only know what it looks like when it's completely still. And traditional education does the exact same thing to words.
It completely isolates them. I mean, textbooks strip away the single most important element of human communication, which is context. You get a vocabulary list. You get this grammatically perfect sentence printed in black ink on a white page. But living language does not exist in a vacuum. It is deeply emotional, it's heavily contextual, and it's incredibly messy.
So messy.
Think about a really simple word, like fine. On a textbook page, I am fine just translates to a neutral state of well-being.
Right, besides it's normal.
Exactly. But in living audio, so in a podcast, a movie, or a real conversation, if you hear someone exhale a long, shaky breath, drop their pitch and say, I'm fine, the meaning slips entirely.
Oh, totally. They're absolutely not fine.
Yeah.
They are miserable.
Precisely. And the textbook cannot teach you that shaky breath. It can't teach you the sarcasm, the urgency, or the hesitation. Audio does. Listening to native speakers provides that situational anchor that makes the language three-dimensional. It adds the wind to your butterfly analogy.
Okay, but if the textbook is a frozen display case,
yeah,
how do we actually survive the wild? Because stepping out of a quiet classroom and into a real conversation is just a profound shock to the system. Suddenly, the words aren't just moving, they're like colliding into each other.
Yes, they are.
Which completely changes the mechanics of how we hear them.
And this is where we find the critical missing link that traditional education just entirely ignores, and that is natural speed.
Okay.
When native speakers talk, they don't produce a series of isolated textbook words. They produce a continuous stream of sound.
Wait, hold on. This sounds a little controversial, but are you telling me that my high school French teacher actually made me worse at understanding French in the real world? Like, by speaking so slowly and enunciating every single syllable, are teachers actively setting students up to fail?
Unintentionally, yeah. I mean, they are creating a completely artificial auditory environment.
Wow.
In a classroom, a teacher naturally slows down. They insert these microscopic pauses between words so the students can digest them. But real, unadulterated spoken language relies heavily on linking sounds, elisions, contractions.
Right, the words blend together.
Exactly. A native English speaker almost never says, "What are you going to do?" They say, "What you going to do?" The boundaries between the words just dissolve.
It's the rhythm.
Yeah.
It's like the music of the language. When a teacher slows it down, they take the melody away.
Yeah.
So you're getting individual disconnected drum beats instead of the actual song.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
And then when you hear the real song, you don't even recognize the beat.
Exactly. And the consequence of that artificial classroom speed is this profound cognitive trap. When you only learn from slow, frozen language, your brain develops a very specific processing habit. translation.
Ah, right. The constant mental translating.
Yes. It hears a word, pauses, translates that word into your native language, understands the concept, and then waits for the next word.
Which is just exhausting. I mean, I've been there. You're standing in a bakery in Italy, sweating, trying to do real-time translation in your head while the cashier is just, staring at you.
Oh, it's more than exhausting. It's neurologically impossible to sustain at natural speed. Think about the cognitive load for a second.
Okay.
When you hear a foreign word, your ear catches the sound, sends it to the auditory cortex, and your brain recognizes it as foreign. It then has to open up your mental dictionary, scan for the native equivalent, retrieve it, drop it into your short-term memory, and then try to make sense of it in the context of the sentence.
And that takes a lot of computing power.
It takes milliseconds, sure, but those milliseconds add up fast because native speakers speak at roughly 150 to 200 words per minute. They are dropping syllables at a rate of like 5 or 6 per second.
So you're already behind.
Right. By the time your brain has done the dictionary lookup for word number 1, the speaker is already on word number 6.
It's a buffer overflow.
God.
Your brain just crashes.
That is the perfect way to describe it. Your auditory buffer completely overflows, you get left behind, panic sets in, and the rest of the sentence just sounds like static.
Wow.
This is why you freeze when ordering coffee. But this is exactly where the audio hack from the sources changes the game. Because relentless exposure to natural speed forces your brain to abandon the translation process entirely.
Because it literally has no other choice. Like if it
Yes.
tries to translate, it crashes. So I have to find a new strategy just to survive the data stream.
Exactly. Out of sheer necessity, your brain stops trying to process individual words and starts actually feeling the language.
Feeling the language.
Yes. It starts recognizing entire phrases and emotional intentions without routing them through your native language first. And linguists identify this specific mechanism, the shift from translating to feeling, as the precise cognitive leap required to go from an intermediate learner to advanced fluency.
So you can't even get there without it.
You cannot reach the upper tiers of language acquisition until you break the translation habit.
Now, if you're listening to this right now, you're probably thinking, great, I need to feel the language. I need to abandon my mental dictionary. And that sounds incredibly romantic.
Sure.
But let's be real. When you first turn on a podcast in a foreign language at natural speed, it is deeply intimidating. It just sounds like an impenetrable wall of noise. Where do you even start? How do you get enough exposure to this rapid-fire speech without feeling totally overwhelmed and just, giving up?
Well, you need a logistical strategy to manage the chaos. You have to manufacture high-frequency exposure without adding hours of exhausting study time to your day.
Right, because nobody has time for that.
Exactly. So the most effective framework for this is called the commute advantage.
Which is brilliant, by the way, because it targets a resource we all have, but completely waste.
It's a complete reframing of your daily schedule. The commute advantage is about taking what is universally considered lost time. So the 20 minutes you spend walking the dog, the time you sit staring out the window on the bus, the drive to work, folding laundry and converting it entirely into language exposure time.
And that really only works because of the frictionless nature of having podcasts and audio files right in your pocket.
Precisely. And this is key, it's not just about turning on a random Spanish radio station and letting it play. Volume of listening is important. But to overcome that wall of noise, that buffer overflow we talked about, you need targeted repetition.
Right. It immediately makes me think of how we consume heavily produced music. It's exactly like hearing a complex new pop song on the radio.
Oh, walk me through that.
Okay, so think about the very first time you hear a new, hyper-produced pop track. It's usually really jarring, right? There's too much going on.
Yeah, definitely.
The synths are weird. The beat drops at an unexpected time. You can't catch the lyrics, and the melody just feels chaotic. You might even hate it. It's just noise.
Right.
But you don't turn off the radio forever. You hear it again the next day on your drive to work. And then you hear it again playing in the grocery store. By the third or fourth time you hear it, something magical happens. Your brain has mapped the chaos.
Yes.
Suddenly you're tapping your foot. You know exactly when the bass is going to drop. You anticipate the chorus. The song itself hasn't slowed down. The tempo is exactly the same. You have changed. Your brain mapped the pattern.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and it maps perfectly onto the neurological reality of language acquisition. The chaos of a new pop song is identical to the chaos of a foreign language at natural speed.
Oh, wow.
And to map that chaos, the strategy relies heavily on a protocol known as the Rule of 3. Repetition is the mother of skill isn't just some motivational quote, it's a neurological imperative.
So what does the rule of three actually look like in practice for someone doing this?
It is incredibly specific. You do not just binge a bunch of different random podcast episodes. You take a single 10-minute audio clip of natural conversational speech, and you listen to that exact same 10-minute clip 3 times a day.
3 times a day. The exact same 10 minutes. I mean, I could see how some people might find that tedious, but going back to the pop song, it makes total sense.
The psychology behind it is fascinating. The first time you hear the 10-minute clip, your brain is just trying to survive. It's the wall of noise. You catch maybe a handful of words.
It's fighting for your life, basically.
Pretty much. But when you listen to it the second time during your lunch break and the third time on your commute home, the brain stops treating those specific linked phrases, the what you're gonna do's, as novel threats.
Oh, interesting.
Because it has heard them before in the exact same sequence, the brain stops trying to translate them and actually starts to own them. It begins to anticipate the rhythm.
You're mapping the butterfly's flight. You're internalizing the erratic movements until they aren't erratic anymore. They're predictable.
Precisely. And by utilizing the commute advantage, you easily fit those 3 10-minute sessions into your normal day. You haven't sat down at a desk once, you haven't opened a textbook, you've just repurposed your transit time to map auditory chaos.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm stopping you right there.
Yep.
Because this sounds dangerously close to one of those late-night infomercial gimmicks, like learn French in your sleep, achieve fluency while staring out the window of the train.
I know.
Are you seriously telling me I can master a complex language just by letting audio casually wash over me while I'm walking my dog and thinking about what to make for dinner? I mean, that is way too easy.
Your skepticism is entirely justified, and honestly, it highlights the biggest misconception in modern language learning. People desperately want to believe in effortless subconscious fluency.
Oh, really do?
But the sources draw a very hard, definitive line between 2 entirely different modes of processing: passive listening and active listening.
Okay, so the dog walking commute listening, that's passive. Does it actually do anything, or is it just making us feel productive?
It does something incredibly vital, but it is only half the equation. Passive listening, which is having the audio run in the background while your conscious attention is partially elsewhere, is phenomenal for developing an ear for the language.
Okay.
It builds comfort. It familiarizes your brain with the intonation, the cadence, and the musicality we talked about earlier. It prevents that buffer overflow from causing absolute panic. It builds the foundation.
Right, it makes the wall of noise sound like music.
Exactly. But it stops there. Passive listening will not make you a fluent speaker. If you want real, tangible growth, if you want actually open your mouth and produce the language, naturally you have to engage in active listening. Comfort is passive. Growth is active.
And this is where we get to the actual work. The secret sauce.
The secret sauce. And it requires a completely different level of engagement. The most powerful technique for active listening is a drill called shadowing.
Shadowing.
Yeah, and it only takes about 5 minutes, but it is an incredibly intense, deliberate practice.
Okay, walk me through exactly what it looks like to do a shadowing session. Because this seems to be the linchpin of the whole audio hack.
So shadowing takes that same audio you've been listening to on your commute, where you've already mapped the chaos and demands that you reproduce it. You pause the audio. You rewind to find one specific sentence. Just one.
Okay.
And then you try to mimic the speaker's voice exactly.
Like an impressionist. An exact replica.
A total vocal replica.
Yeah.
You aren't just reading the words out loud to yourself. You are mimicking the emotion, the speed, the linking sounds, the pitch, the exact placement of the pause, the sigh, everything that makes it living language.
Wow.
You speak right alongside them, or maybe a fraction of a second behind them, trying to match their delivery perfectly.
You're literally putting on the costume of native speaker for one single sentence.
But I mean, why is mimicking so much more effective than just memorizing the vocabulary?
Because we completely forget that speaking is a motor skill. It is not just a mental exercise. It is a highly coordinated physical act.
Yes. It involves your lips, your jaw, your vocal cords, your diaphragm, and the intrinsic muscles of your tongue.
Oh my gosh, that is such a huge blind spot. We treat language like it's math, like it's just information stored in a database, but it's actually gymnastics.
It is absolute gymnastics. Think about it like a golf swing. You can sit on your couch and watch 100 hours of professional golf on TV. That's passive listening.
Right.
You understand the rules, you know what a good swing looks like, you recognize the rhythm. But the moment you step onto a golf course and try to hit a ball, you're going to completely whiff. Why? Because your hips, your shoulders, and your wrists have zero muscle memory of the movement.
You know the theory, but you don't have the mechanics.
Exactly. And the mouth is no different. When you grow up speaking English, your articulators, your tongue and jaw get really, really good at the specific acrobatics required for English sounds.
Makes sense.
They are highly conditioned for English. But French or Mandarin or Arabic, they have entirely different phonetic boundaries. They require muscular movements you have literally never made in your life. You do not have the muscle tone for them.
So when you try to speak Spanish after only reading a textbook, you're basically using English muscle movements to try and produce foreign sounds. It's like trying to play tennis with a baseball bat.
Precisely. Which is why you sound so clunky and why you stumble. Shadowing is a targeted gym session for your mouth. It is physical conditioning.
I love that.
Passive listening trains the brain to recognize the sound, but active shadowing trains the muscles of the tongue and jaw to actually produce it.
That is incredible. And honestly, it makes the whole process feel so much more attainable.
Yeah.
Because you realize you aren't failing intellectually. Your muscles just haven't hit the gym yet.
Right.
And it doesn't take hours. 5 minutes of intense, focused shadowing where you are physically sweating trying to match the exact cadence of a native speaker will do more for your actual fluency than 5 hours of silently highlighting verbs in a textbook.
Because you are aligning the mental map with the physical capability. You combine the passive comfort of the commute with the active growth of shadowing. That is how you bypass the textbook trap and acquire living language.
So, to bring all this together for you today, we've completely dismantled the traditional approach. We started by realizing that staring at the frozen language of textbooks is like studying a dead butterfly. It leaves you entirely unprepared for the chaotic, overlapping reality of the wild.
Yeah.
We explored why teachers who speak too slowly actually handicap our brains, causing that terrifying buffer overflow when we try to translate natural speed word for word in real time.
And the solution isn't to study harder, but to listen smarter. To leverage the commute advantage by turning lost time into high-frequency exposure. Running that rule of 3 protocol, listening to the same 10-minute clip over and over until the wall of noise becomes a predictable, mapped-out song.
Right. And finally, the realization that while passive listening makes you comfortable, you have to do the physical work to grow. You have to step into the batting cage. You have to spend those 5 minutes actively shadowing, forcing your jaw, your tongue, and your vocal cords to build the muscle memory required to actually produce the living language. It takes the butterfly out of the glass case and forces you to actually learn how to fly alongside it.
It fundamentally changes what it means to learn. And honestly, it leaves us with an incredibly fascinating, almost limitless implication. I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you go about your day. If simply leveraging the lost time on our daily commute and strategically utilizing natural audio can physically rewire our brains and build new muscle memory to master something as complex as a foreign language, what else is on the table?
Wow.
What other incredibly intimidating skills, deep bodies of knowledge, or complete paradigm shifts could we master just by consciously changing the audio we pipe directly into our ears while we sit on the bus?
That is a wild thought. You spend years staring at the jagged white line on an X-ray, trying to memorize the textbook definition of a broken bone, thinking you're doing the work. But maybe the real secret isn't staring at the static picture. Maybe the secret to mastering almost anything is stepping into the muddy waters of the real world, turning up the volume and finally learning how to hear the music.